Hey everybody, Edo here, and in this video I wanted to talk about how to be productive from home. Right now a lot of people are working from home or are at home a lot and trying to figure out ways to be productive and get a lot done and just stay focused and accomplish. I am actually going to go through a litany of things and suggestions on how to do it better. But before I do, I just wanted to say there's a legitimate question on how productive do you need to be, right? Obviously, if you have a job and you work from home for your job, be as productive as possible because you are in a wonderful situation, you haven't lost your job, and you're safe at home. But setting that aside, just because you're at home, does that mean you have to learn a new language or design 15 games or whatever? Or is it a time to sort of reflect and think about the changing world? And I think there is a perspective there, right? Things are changing. Things will be different. And it is not necessary to pack every single one of those moments with productivity, right? So before going on, just as a baseline, one, spend time with your friends and family, right? The people around you, people who you can call on the phone, your parents, whomever. Connect, right? Do your best to connect with those folks and strengthen those bonds. It's going to be really hard, and there are a lot of people you're not going to see for a long time. So really, connect with your friends. It's a big part of it. Also, whether you're religious or spiritual, take some time to reflect, connect mind with body, and really just engage with who you are in the moment and where you are in life. I think that is also an important time, that kind of reflection. Again, you might be religious, you might not be, but spending the time to sort of think about the way the world is and the way you are, I think is an important part of it. Another really important thing is get sleep. I know a lot of people struggle sometimes because of the stress of the situation and sleeping, but, arguably, and you might have kids, a lot of people keeping you up, but perhaps not commuting, things going on, you can catch up on sleep, get a little bit more sleep, and being rested will in fact help you be productive, as will exercise. It's hard. You're probably sitting down, you're probably inside to the extent you can, going on a walk, maybe a bike ride, walking up and down stairs if you have them, or just doing push-ups or whatever. Getting rest, doing exercise, all those things actually help you be more focused and more productive, as does eating well and taking care of yourself. So this is this huge period of unknown. You want to do all these family, health, sort of connecting with yourself in the world pieces, and then we can talk about how to be as productive as possible and maximize the time. So let's talk about some of that maximization. If you are now working from home or starting to work from home or all those things, and assuming you're not just, if you're somebody who's home alone, it's a lot easier. But let's assume you have your wife, your animal, your kids, whoever, your husband or whatever, your partner. You're going to be dealing with way, way more interruptions, right, than you're used to. They'll be constant. It's just a totally different environment and lots of things going on. You need to accept that, right? The last thing you want to do is get more and more frustrated at interruptions, right? It's something that's going to happen. It's the situation you're in. And being able to sort of weather that, starting to work, somebody asks me a question, starting to work, the phone rings, starting to work, the dog has to go on a walk. Those sorts of things really, if you let it make you angry and frustrated, will really detract from your ability to be productive. One of the things that's super helpful if you are dealing with other folks in your house is communicating that you're working. Letting people know, hey, I want to be heads down right now. Having a flag or a sign or a picture or some writing to say, Dad's working, please don't interrupt. Give your family and people around you cues to know that you're working. Another good thing is headphones. Now, maybe you can't because you got to pay attention to your kids, make sure they don't hurt each other. But headphones are a good option. Just ways to zone in, but also just understanding you can't control the situation and helping people understand that you are trying to work. Part of that too, though, is recognizing that when you work and somebody interrupts you, you can come off like a jerk. So your kid's asking you for something, don't bark at them. Don't get, again, you just want to pause. Dad's working, mom's working. How can I help you? Please ask, can that wait 15 minutes? Set alarms for your kids and let them know what's going on. But I think all those things are like a baseline to getting things done and setting up your space. Speaking of your space, I'm work from home. This is our kitchen table, or dining room table rather, and this is where I work. This is where I sit, both for videos, but just for working right here. And so, some folks may be in a situation where the middle of the household is the best place to work if you don't have an office or another space or a garage to go work in. But to the best of your ability, making your space comfortable, ergonomic, well situated with the things that you need, so you aren't constantly getting up and having to get your items. Sort of having your work kit together is a really powerful way to help yourself stay focused and be successful. And if you have a backyard or some space to go, maybe you can take yourself outside to do it, right? Mix it up. But having a consistent, regular spot that works for you and how you like to work is really important. Okay, so next, I think it is super useful to have a to-do list. Now, I like to have a written to-do list. I'll actually go through and write things out and make notes and cross things off, and I like that visceral feel. There's Evernote, there's Clear, there's Google Tasks or whatever. Those all work, whatever works for you. But sitting down, enumerating what you have to do, and then marking them off, crossing them off, scratching them off as you do them is a good way to keep track of what's going on and stay focused. For me, I can be really stressed and have lots of consternation when I feel like there's a ton of stuff for me to do, and there's this and that, and I'm trying to juggle. By making a list, enumerating it, putting it down on paper, I am releasing it from my mind, and then I can just go about doing the things. And I think that's useful for a lot of folks. One of the things has been a huge step forward for me, or learning, or epiphany, is that you can create a lot of stress if your list is, here are all the things I need to get done today, Tuesday, and here's the list. And if I don't get every single thing done on Tuesday, I've somehow failed, I've somehow missed. Look, you're gonna miss. There are gonna be things coming up. You might have to go shopping. You might have to take care of this. There might be a situation that requires your attention. It's not normal times, right? So that's okay. I think that the way I tend to is I've moved away from listing by date, more listing by category, product, project, family, home, whatever, all the different sort of groupings, and then within them making the different tasks. And what I'll do is I'll sort of either give them priority or put a little note on it that is sort of this is a Tuesday. So I do have a sense of when I want to get it done. But what I aim to do is allow myself the freedom to say, well, that Tuesday thing became a Wednesday. Or the two priority items were these items. I got them done. I wanted to do these other ones, but they slid over. And that's okay. This and this are must-dos. These 5 things are should-dos or want-to-dos. And having a little flexibility in there will go a long way, because you will be interrupted. You will have a hard time doing stuff. And you don't want to add this mixture of procrastination and procrastination coming through with the stress of not getting things done and getting angry at yourself. I mean, I think a lot of that stems from over budgeting, trying to do too much. I think it's about doing the right things and being okay if something falls later. I don't remember the exact quote, but online or something I was reading something interesting, and I think it was something like, procrastination isn't a mental problem, it's an emotional problem. And that's not the exact quote, but basically the idea is procrastination, is sort of your energy and your engagement more than it is necessarily a mental block. And I think there's a couple different ways to think about it, but it just, the idea that, it's much more about regulating how you're perceiving things and thinking about things and sort of your emotional state than necessarily it is just forcing yourself to get the work done. But everyone's different and people work different ways. Okay, so talked a little bit about getting started, interruptions, communications, frustrations, to-do list. Let's just talk about some tools. Communication tools are really important in a time when everyone's working from home. There are a number of really great, fantastic ways to talk and communicate with people who you're working with, starting with your phone, right? Let's not forget the phone and FaceTime and instant messaging, that texting, that's all there. Obviously, the hot item right now is Zoom. Zoom's a very effective platform. There are all sorts of, news articles about leaking it or people being able to access it and stuff like that. I haven't done any research on the matter, but obviously Zoom's an option. But long before Zoom, you had Skype, which is easy to use, Google Hangouts, you can do Facebook calls. So it's really easy to have a tool that allow you to talk with one person or many about the projects or things you're working on. And I'll talk about this more, but having that communication is really valuable and a great way to stay in tune with folks, both for working, but for just meeting. And I don't do it as much as I'm on work calls with 7 people I work with 20 times a day. But my wife will just talk with her friends, and they'll have the different bouncing heads, of who's talking and just socialize as groups, and that's, I think, super valuable. So those are visualization communication tools. All of them are pretty straightforward. Any of them work. Again, I think the thing with Zoom is Zoom just made it really pass a link around, jump in and start talking. So then you have some some additional, people are used to using, Facebook or even Twitter, but instant messaging, texting. Slack, if you're not familiar with it, is a really good tool that you can use to set up groups and talk about things. There are a lot of communities and board gaming and otherwise that are using Slack right now, and you can jump in and join it. Most of these things, just download it and check it out. You take you 10 seconds to figure it out, but Slack is a pretty straightforward tool. And then in terms of resource sharing, if you're not familiar, there's Google Docs. You can, and Google Drive, you can upload and share files really easily, whether they're spreadsheets or workbook, PowerPoints or Google documents like a Word doc, PDF. You can also just share files in general, show up videos in general. Dropbox is another good tool to do that. It's a little bit more expensive, but also very effective and useful. Discord's another more gaming-focused channel you can use to talk and engage with folks. So there are ample tools for just working with other folks. It goes on. You can start talking about Trello and other more elaborate product management stuff, but I'm not really talking about product management. I'm really just talking about being productive and using video communication tools, text communication tools, and file sharing are pretty critical to doing that. Also, I think people don't realize how useful either Keynote or PowerPoint or Google presentations can be, or even Balsamiq, if you want to get a little bit more fancy, can be for helping visualize and communicate things. You can get caught up with just texts or lists or videos, but being able to sort of have the equivalent of a whiteboard or a little spot to put information up and drop some pictures in and just sort of make arrows and stuff can be really effective to communicate and share information. Also, timelines and sort of release schedules. And I mean, this is sort of particular stuff that I do, but just being able to show things in the sequence over time and using images and stuff, I think is really useful. And all those tools are very effective. So I don't think those are, I think almost all those tools are easily accessible. Most of them are free. Word isn't, but many of the other ones, you really don't have to spend much money to have digital communication tools today. They're just going to take all your privacy information and sell you ads, but we'll let that go. So getting back to sort of techniques, one of the things that I think is really helpful is sort of building and planning around short burst activity, right? You're going to get interrupted, so that the shorter, more small nugget pieces you can do, the better. Some types of works, it's not as easy. If you're writing a novel, maybe it's not as easy. I don't write novels, but there could be places where that's a little bit more challenging. But at the same time, I think if you can break a piece of work into many little tasks, and you can put them in the list and let yourself complete those tasks. Maybe it's an outline. Maybe it's writing a section. don't necessarily think like, oh, going back to board games, I'm going to design this whole game. Think more of like, I'm going to pick a theme, or I'm going to choose a mechanic, or I'm going to balance this number, or I'm going to tune this, or I'm going to play test here. And the smaller, more manageable it is, more checking it off you can do, better sense of accomplishment and dopamine and being able to like drive it through to completion, I think is a big part of it. So, and that's not, one of the things that I'd stress with being productive is, especially if it's in a team type productivity, everyone feels success when anyone has success. So if you're getting something done or somebody else is getting something done, that is valuable to everybody. So looking for moments of accomplishment, recognizing moments of accomplishment, sharing moments of accomplishment go a really long way to helping you both be and feel productive. And again, breaking things down, putting them steps in a process, making that checklist. The other thing that I think is really valuable, especially if you're like work from home working and trying to be productive, but in any group project or even to some extent maybe with your family, like reporting, summarizing, communicating what you did is a big deal. I mean, if you want to be retrospective and at the end of the day, you can enumerate the things you accomplished, that's sort of cool. But also, hey, I did these 12 things. I could have said to my team, hey, I worked on my project, but don't go through and list all the things that happened and that you were able to accomplish. Like, don't show off, but like list it off. And I think that will allow you to share and communicate with others what you've accomplished and help them understand your process and how you're working. That's also good with family members. If you have kids and maybe they interrupted you and maybe you didn't, it's not always easy not to get frustrated. Maybe you got frustrated, coming back and saying, hey, sorry about before. I was working on this memo. I was working on this project. I was doing this thing for these reasons, and I couldn't give you more time. Let me give you more time now. So I think for yourself, for the people around you, for your company, for your project, being able to communicate and summarize and enumerate the things that you've done and how it's gone is useful. And again, it also then helps share the sense of accomplishment amongst all those folks that are involved. All of that falls into communicate, right? Try not to get stuck just heads down. Try to update, follow up, make sure everyone's aligned, work through things. Not always assuming, like really stay connected. You have to go the extra mile when people are not connected. Now, to some regard, if you're used to working with a bunch of people on Slack, they might be even more responsive because they're all working from home. They're not in meetings and that kind of thing. Speaking of which, meetings aren't a bad thing, right? It's about getting everyone on the phone and communicating. So if you can have impromptu meetings or planned meetings, I think those are good touch bases at the beginning of the day, at the end of the day. That's more for bigger projects and people working together, like in a sort of company-based stuff. But even on a smaller project, those can be useful. One of the interesting things that's sort of an adder is don't be afraid to find help. Like right now, a lot of people have time and have different skills. And, there may be things that you're working on that you would normally have like play test or brought somewhere with you. And you're not like, well, I can't play test because I can't go anywhere. Well, can you? Maybe you can do a print and play. Maybe you can think about telling somebody about what you're trying to do and getting their opinion. Somebody can who you've never had an editor before, like you write and you work, but maybe you can get your friend to edit something. Or, a lot of folks are stuck at home, right? Like your parents even, so maybe ask your dad to read over your paper or whatever. Like creating those loops and those communications and those opportunities that's healthy for you and it can be helpful for the other person, giving other people things to do. I mean, again, older parents and other things, letting them be involved in your life. I mean, it's not a bad thing. So I think, along those lines, understanding like heads up and heads down time, right? When you're working, when you're focused, when you're writing, when you're working on some math or analytics or whatever, you're like heads down thinking focused. But then all this communication stuff, the meetings, that's all heads up. You're not working, you're communicating, you're sharing. And sort of thinking about how much time you need that's heads down versus heads up and how to sort of segment it through the day is valuable. Some people like longer stretches of a singular thing. Some people like variety. Back to that first point, understanding how you work, who you are, where your head's at, could help you understand what's the most effective and easiest way to be productive. I think having worked with lots of different groups in lots of different places, and done sort of digital work for a long time, and these are a lot of things that I've just gotten used to and do, and it's sort of a second nature, and I don't really think about it. But I wanted to share a video about this because I think a lot of people haven't really ever had to do this, and it's not really what they do normally, and they're looking for ways. I'll circle back to that first point. This doesn't have to be the point in your life where you're 100% or 125% efficient. I think there is space to step back and be like, whoa, what's happening right now? This is crazy. What does it mean? But next to that, if you have a job, if you want to get something done, if you want to learn something, be productive, write that book you never got to write, it could be a time to do that. And hopefully some of these things were helpful in giving you some spaces and ways to do it. As always, please, anyone who has other ideas, other techniques, tricks, whatever, please share them. I'm always interested in reading. And otherwise, get some stuff done. Bye. Hey everybody, Edo here, and thanks for watching Gaming with Edo. Reviews over here on this playlist, League and Insider videos over here on this one. Subscribe, share, all that good stuff. But most importantly, play some great games. Thanks.